Welcome to what is now living in infinity. We are no longer in a life after AI. And we did this. We rebranded ourselves because we just wanted to kind of expand the scope of topics we could cover. Um, like Alec, he's really interested in business. And I would like to kind of dive off into politics every now and then or whatever else I find interesting. So, yeah, we just think living in infinity kind of opens up the door to do that. Also, um, it's nice to be back after a long break. Um, I know I was feeling a bit brain dead at the time of our last episode. Um, that took place right around the end of my semester and between school and writing, and I'm started coaching high school golf. Well, so I don't know how it's going on, but yeah, took a little bit of a break and ready to get back at it.
Yeah, I think it's been like 2 months maybe since our last episode, but going forward, we should be good for like regular weekly episodes, just kind of talking about business, tech, economics, some politics here and there. So, yeah, just kind of wanted to open up our range of topics instead of just doing AI only. And so, yeah, I guess we could start out with what's probably the biggest news so far of, the past several weeks. Apple announced their new Vision Pro headset. Um, this is like once every like 5, 6 years, Apple will do something that kind of completely shifts, uh, the whole landscape for tech. Like they'll come out with some new platform, basically. So like the iPhone was a platform shift, iPad, the MacBook, and now we kind of have this new Vision Pro headset, which is like AR and VR. Um, and this is going to be, what I think will be like Apple's most important product for the foreseeable future because it is like a complete different shift into like some area of technology that we haven't really gotten all that far into. So yeah, we can kind of dive into that for a while. Did you get a chance to like watch a recap of the event or just kind of read some articles about it? Or like, what are your initial thoughts on it?
Um, my initial thoughts are just that it looks really cool. It's kind of similar. Do you remember like the Google glasses?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's like that on steroids. Probably a lot better than what those were. But um, yeah. So no, they seem sweet. I do think it was nice to see Apple get into the ball game. Finally announced their weapon of choice for this AI battle. And it was a big one. I mean, I didn't. It was amazing how quiet they kept it because there was just, as far as I could tell, there was no word about any sort of look into AI at all. And then here they come with this bombshell. So you're sweet.
Yeah, for sure. And there have been like, I guess, rumors and leaks of some sort of AR product coming from Apple over the past, I would say, year or so, but like very minor. The details were super speculated on. Uh, I saw some leaks of like they were just like standard glasses, and it was kind of everything built into there. I think while that would have been very cool, the technology is just not there yet for that to happen. But yeah, so some of just kind of like the overlying details, I guess, of the headset itself. So it's AR and VR, which I thought was really interesting. Like, really, the only thing that we have to compare to this is uh, the Meta Quest, which is like Facebook's VR headset. That's really, I guess, the most popular VR headset or platform out there at the moment. And I could be wrong about this, but I'm like fairly certain that it's VR only, no augmented reality whatsoever. Which AR just kind of means like um what?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Can you explain the
Oh,
difference?
yeah. So VR is just like everything's completely virtual, generated on a screen. Um, so like with the Meta Quest headset, you're just looking into the screen. There's no you're not interacting with the outside world whatsoever. Everything's completely virtual. Whereas AR, it's like a mixture of both. So like the headset has cameras and sensors on the front that basically allow you to, they have like it's what's called like a pass through mode. And so you could wear them and the cameras will enable to where it looks like everything that you see in front of you is what you see. Like it's like they're not even really there. And then the VR aspect is like everything that's overlaid on top of that. So very basic example of what you could use them for. Like you're sitting on the couch and you have like in front of you, like the big wall, like maybe there's where your TV would normally be, but just imagine there's no TV there. You can use like that entire wall as like a landscape for a movie or TV show. While at the same time, you can still see everything that's happening around you, hear what's happening around you, but it's just like you have whatever, basically really whatever the developers of this product decide to imagine up, like they can make it happen. Like, um, so lots of use cases for work, like some of the demo examples they showed of like someone just standing at an empty desk with just a keyboard on it, and then like they're looking around them and they had like 4 different screens just like in the room. And what's really cool is like with the Meta Quest, you have controllers in your hands and they're connected to the headset. Whereas with the Vision Pro, there's no controllers at all. The only input is like your eyes. So it does eye tracking and then also your hands. There's like sensors on the bottom of it to where it can look at your hands and see what they're doing, where they're moving. And then you just make certain gestures to do certain things. So way more of like a seamless product than what Meta is currently doing. Um, and yeah, I think like to click, you just kind of like put your fingers together. Like you just look at what you want to click on and touch your fingers together and it just does it. Um, and I've watched some videos of like people that got a chance to actually use it and test it. And this is like the first time I've seen like reviews from a headset like this where people are like, this genuinely feels like magic. The eye tracking is just apparently insanely good. It knows exactly where you're looking at and what you want to do. And then you just like touch your fingers together to click on things or make certain gestures to do certain things. So I would I would love to get one for sure. The only downside is it's like $3,500, which I guess is like to be expected for, well, for one, it's Apple. And then two, it's like a first generation product. The technology is still fairly new. So it's going to take time for this to like get smaller, get cheaper. But yeah, this is like the first time in a long time that I've actually been excited about something that Apple is doing. I feel like the past 6, 7 years, it's just kind of been like small iterative updates on their existing products. And they're still like, I love Apple products. They're great. They just haven't done anything like super exciting. But this is the first time in a long time where it's like, they're really pushing the boundaries again. So it's going to be like really exciting to see uh, what comes of it. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this, but a lot of backlash, I guess, that came from this was like, we're already so glued into screens as it is, computer screens, phones, TVs, just like basically nonstop. What kind of happens to society when we just have one glued to our face? Or
Yeah. Um, I've kind of been thinking about that as you've been speaking, and I've been thinking about it really for the last day or so. Kind of on my own intellectual pursuits, like writing for my Substack, I've been focusing in a lot on uh, the Bible, and really I only bring that up just to mention like I've really fallen in love with just the idea of like being human. You know, we're really cool, and we we're already like I just think we're already like fantastic, and it scares me that we're proceeding into this area where you know it's possible humanity gets left behind. Um, but I don't really think we have a choice. I think this merger between human and machine is going to have to happen. Um, and and I don't know. I think once you accept that, like, pretty freaking cool. Uh, um,
yeah,
and I don't know to me, this almost seems like a competitor with Neuralink in terms of making that merger happen. Um, because think about it, everybody just eventually, you mentioned this thing's going to get smaller and more efficient, which is, I think that's pretty natural for technology. Eventually this thing could be a contact, and then it just really is kind of like part of us, or you can get an implant put in your eye. Or, I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a cool step in that direction of this merger, which I think is inevitable and scary and cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's kind of, I saw someone make that analogy on Twitter, basically saying like, at least for now, while it's brain interfaces, which is what Neuralink is working on, at least for now, this is like a more realistic near term competitor to that, because in a way it is like, it's like an overlay on our reality, you know? And interesting side note to that, Neuralink just got FDA approval for human trial. So like that's going to be really interesting to see what happens and what they can do with that over the next, like, it'll be several years, I would imagine, um, before we start seeing like, or not several years, but maybe like a year before we start seeing like some results and studies come from the actual human trials. But I do think too that um, it'll be interesting to see like how these kind of compete with each other. Because like you said, it could, maybe one day it's just a contact lens, or this just built into like some standard glasses that you would wear that no one could even tell that you were wearing. So like, will it really be necessary to get, you know, something implanted in your brain? I guess that
My
kind of remains to be determined, but
Yeah, my thought is, I mean, part of that argument against being glued to your screen so much is that it's just like information overload. Um, so I think I don't know, I see a world where you need both. You need this Apple product to ingest the information, and then you need the Neuralink to be able to work through it all. I mean, um,
yeah,
because the Neuralink, that's not. Well, I mean, could that be connected to the internet eventually, and then it's just in
yeah,
your brain?
yeah,
Well,
sure. Like through, yeah, just like through your phone in your pocket or something, it can get a connection through that. Or
so what if you know how you imagine in your head? What if that's how you like interact with the internet? That's
yeah, I mean, that's like Black Mirror level stuff right here. But um,
Mhm.
I will say like that's not really what Neuralink is focused on at the moment. For now, it's more like health benefits, which I think is way more important than being able to watch TV on a wall or something, like this is like
Yeah.
the health benefits that come from that is like insane, like giving people the ability to move again that weren't able to see, to hear, like, uh, I think that's what they're focused on for now. But there will come a time where, and Elon has talked about this too, like one point he always brings up is just like the efficiency of people speaking, like of human language is very low. At least compared to what our brains can do. Like we can kind of go through multiple different thoughts and ideas in our brain in like a very short period of time. Whereas if you wanted to actually convey that to someone that you're speaking to through words, like it's very, very slow. It takes a lot of time. So like part of what he's talked about is just like the same way you have ideas that just kind of pop into your head. Like you aren't speaking to yourself in full length sentences in your head. Like you just have ideas. Imagine you can kind of just like have an idea and share it with someone virtually, through the Neuralink or whatever. That would make people way more efficient in terms of communication. So that it's clear that he wants to go eventually the route of like, kind of, I guess like altering our reality in a way with the technology in the brain. But, um, yeah, so for now we just kind of have AR and VR, which I think is good. Like we should, ease our way into stuff like this. But um, yeah, it will be kind of, it will be interesting to see like, are we just going to be walking down the street and people have these goggles on, or like it's going to be,
Mhm.
I think it might take a
Um,
while to get to that point, but
you mentioned this change in this potential change in the way we communicate. Um, so we watched Arrival, right, the movie, and you remember how they would convey like, I mean, I don't know how much information, but a lot of information was packed into those symbols.
yeah.
And so that's just what that made me think of.
Mm. Yeah, I think
Be cool.
like maybe because there are times where, you know, very quick communication would be like very useful. Like if you're in a hospital and someone comes in and you want to like, you're having to converse with like you're the doctor and you're having to converse with like six different nurses and like have them do certain things. Whereas like it's a lot, but imagine that you can just kind of like, everyone's just like synced together in a way and you can kind of just like have these thoughts and they just kind of receive them however that whatever that looks like, and then they just kind of do what they have to do. Like there are scenarios like that I could think of, like stuff like that, where it would just be way more useful. But
It'd
yeah, I don't
probably
know if I really.
expand. Well, it would probably expand our like the amount of information we could understand. So, like like I've read a couple long novels these past couple of years, and I, you think of those novels and just general ideas. Like I'll look at one and be like, "Oh yeah, I know what that's about." But within that big concept, there's a million little things that you have to read the book in order to receive. Um, but what if you could just through this method of communicating, just like convey everything in, I don't know, that simpler, large picture, if that makes
Just like
sense.
download the book in your brain, basically.
Yeah, and then you just get it all of these little
Yeah.
details that make this one big thing. You're just able to get.
Yeah. It's like the limitless pill. Like we can unlock the rest of our brain, or unlock aspects of consciousness that we weren't able to before, uh,
Mhm.
which is equally as terrifying, I guess, as like AGI. But all this stuff kind of happening at the same time is exciting, but also very scary too, just because I really feel like, I mean, that's kind of why we named to change the name to Living in Infinity, right? Like we're living in this age of just like infinite technological evolution and we have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
It's weird because this thing seems anti-human in the sense that we might be leaving the traditional human form behind, but it also seems pro-human in the sense that like humans are going to be able to do things just at a rate far faster, better than ever before. And it's gonna,
yeah.
and in that manner, it's gonna make us even cooler. So
Yeah. Agreed for sure. I do agree with what you said earlier too, that it's just kind of inevitable. Like technology is always going to progress. There's not really any way to stop it unless we have like some sort of global catastrophic event that, sets us back
mm,
30 years for technology. But uh, yeah, we are
spe-
definitely
uh,
like, uh,
well, just I don't know if you know much about it, but I just read briefly like about Sam Altman's tour around the world, and he's trying to get like global cooperation in terms of AI. It just I don't even know the point I was making with this. It just seems like good for like I understand why he's doing it, I understand why it's important, but also it's like what's a kid? They can't. They're not going to be able to figure any of this out. So it seems futile. I guess that's my only point.
yeah. And I think too, like, it's really hard to, like, there's certain countries that are just kind of do their own thing, you know?
Mm.
Like, I think it's very important that globally we are as united as possible on this front when it comes to AI and just the overall progression of this technology. But there are definitely certain countries that we are just like probably not going to see eye to eye on with what our values are and what we are trying to accomplish with AI. there are certain countries that are just going to be on the completely other end of the spectrum. And that's, like you said, it's kind of futile. Like they're just kind of going to do their thing regardless. And
Yeah.
probably not,
Yeah,
probably some bad stuff will come from that.
for sure. I feel like there's going to be too much self interest if in play to prevent any useful global cooperation from happening. But
Yeah.
I will.
Um,
That's kind of it makes. I think it's a good segue into another topic we were going to touch on, which was this apparent change in uh, culture war, which I think is downstream of Elon purchasing Twitter. Um, and kind of the point I want to make with this is like, okay, so Elon buys Twitter, and I mean, I know there are a lot of people that disagree with this, but it increased the flow of information that was circulating the internet, um, kind of even the playing field. And with that, you see, I see good changes. I like, I, I guess I support what's happening recently with this change in the culture war. And so, I think as this AI technology improves, we're going to see, maybe people have more say in how their world goes, a little more individual freedom, a little more individual, yeah, I don't know, power. So, uh, so, so yeah, I think that's another reason to be excited about all this.
Kind of just like an overall push towards decentralizing everything in a way.
Mm.
More individual freedom, more individual power. Or hopefully that's the way that it will go. I can certainly see that happening, like especially as AI gets more advanced, we can kind of everyone's gonna have their own AI, like their own version of it that is more is aligned specifically to what they want, what their values are. Which I think is obviously way better than just having some sort of like broad AI that everyone uses and everyone's values are kind of like, I guess, adapted in a way to what that AI is. That's a very dangerous scenario for sure. I think the way what it will probably look like is there's a couple companies that will have their own AI models and they will be the ones that everyone uses. So like OpenAI, um, Google, maybe one or two others, but these models will be like specifically like but those will be the underlying models, and then each person will have their own like version of that, like I said, is tailored towards them. It helps them out with what they want. It knows their needs. It knows their values. Um, at least
I
in my
almost
mind,
think,
what the ideal scenario is.
yeah, yeah, I almost think, you mentioned a lot about like the AI is going to be tailored to them specifically, but okay, so like going back to kind of my recent dive into Christianity, like, you know, I in Christianity, the idea that makes God so great is just that he knows everything and just sees the big picture. And maybe that's what AI kind of will allow us to gain, is that ability. And so maybe you don't really want tailored AI. You want just that ability to see or to ingest as much information as possible and then make sense of it. And I think, uh, yeah, to me, if we go that route, that's the cool way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think AI will certainly unlock that ability. I guess my question would be like, how many people would kind of use this in an objective way, you know? Uh, I think a lot of people, at least right now, and I like at least like just the way that social media has kind of altered society in a way. A lot of people, and this is not a good thing, but a lot of people find it easier to be told what to think rather than like come to their own conclusions. You know, like they follow their certain news providers, They run with whatever headlines they're given, and that's just kind of their whole thought process. There's not a whole lot of critical thinking involved, but
But
I think at
that's
least
never
the,
been
the good part, I would say at least the good part of AI is that it will make it a lot easier, like you said, to source information and think about it critically, as opposed to just like relying on, your Twitter feed or whatever news channel you watch.
yeah, yeah. Um, kind of there's two thoughts. So yeah, based off what I'm learning from um my this reading about Christianity, basically what I'm learning about it is just it's the idea, which is not a new one, it's very old, is that there's nothing on earth that can uh, like fix the world. That's why people turn to God. I mean, that's not the argument here. They're just saying like I disagree with the idea that people have that with this AI improvement, like the world's going to become fantastic and utopia like. Um, I think it's just going to continue to be good and bad, but like with an overall uptrend, because that seems to be what happens when there's large increases in technology. Um, sorry, my dog is going insane in the background. Can you hear that?
You're good.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I kind of want to make that point. And the other one was just, yeah, I don't fully expect people to get this technology and then be like, oh, all of a sudden I'm going to become, um, I'm going to widen my views and take in both sides. Like, I know people aren't going to do that just because they get the option to at a higher rate. But
Yeah.
I think for the people that are already like that, like their utility within the world is only going to increase exponentially. And that's going to help play into that overall uptick. So, I think unless we hit that like breaking point where AI goes insane and kills us all, I think this is just going to be cool, good, great.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I agree with that. I think we talked about this previously, but kind of the way that I look at it is like there's like a spectrum of outcomes that would come from this. Like on one side you have all the good outcomes, and on one side you have the bad outcomes. And like the further you go each way, the worse or better that it gets. What I kind of see AI doing is like it extends both of them. I don't know if I want to say it extends the good spectrum further than the bad, but the bad will definitely also be expanded. So all the good things that could come from AI, or sorry, rephrasing that, lots of really good things will come from AI, but also like lots of really bad things too, like really bad scenarios that were not once possible. But that being said, I think the good will far outweigh the bad. Again, like you said, assuming that AI doesn't just like kill us all.
Yeah.
So I don't find it useful or productive to be like one of those doomsday sayers, like just focus on the bad outcomes of what could happen, because I think the good far, far outweighs that.
Right. Yeah. I think if you look at like a step below the doomsday people, there's this level of argument against AI where it's like, oh, like what was it? Chaos AI? Was that what it was called? Where it just wreaks havoc and
Chaos
there's,
GPT.
yeah, chaos GPT. Um, there are people that seem to be like, okay, yeah, it's not going to destroy us, but there's going to be all these bad things that can happen. They're worried about all this like evil, and that's fair, and it's probably good that some people are concerned about it, but also there's already evil, and so and we only have there's this much evil, and we have this much capability to fight it. Well, with AI, it's just like, okay, so there's going to be this much evil, but then we're going to have this much capability to fight it, at least in theory. So it's kind of like a net.
Yeah.
It's like a moot point almost in my mind. So, I mean, not saying they're, like I said, it's probably good they're worried about it because somebody should,
Sure.
but I wouldn't let that pro
Yeah.
prevent further innovation at this moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think our technology is like an amplifier. And if there's anything that we can learn from history, it's that, I mean, look back 50 years ago. Would you rather be living today or then? I think
Yeah.
most people would probably say today. Uh,
Can I
you know,
share
so
something that
like,
just
yeah,
in my head? Okay, so like let's look back at cavemen. Okay, some
okay.
some caveman discovers fire. There's probably half his tribe that are like, you could burn the whole planet down, and then the other half is like, hell yeah, we can have steaks now, grilled steaks or whatever. It's the same argument. Like, okay, so would you go back and tell them, okay, yeah, let's not mess with this. Let's not learn more about fire. No, you say, yeah, hell yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
I think that's a good analogy.
no, for sure. I mean, basically all the technology that we now have came as a result of the discoverance of fire. So like either we stayed there because he was going to burn down a village, or like we get all the stuff that we have now, you know? I guess I think
Mhm.
AI is a great way of, you know, looking at that. I don't want to say AI is quite at the same level of discovering fire, but I mean, it's probably pretty close. Like we don't really know what's going to happen, but I would say like the
Yeah.
change in what we're going to see from AI technology is like probably incomprehensible to us today, the same way it would have been to the caveman when they had discovered fire. So, uh, yeah, I don't see why, like we're here, we're living in this. I don't see why you'd want to just like sit around and be like, oh, this is it. This is the end, you know? It's just not a good use of time. I don't like, I'd much rather be optimistic
It,
and wrong
yeah.
than like be pessimistic and be like, oh, I was right. Told you we're all dead. Well, good job, you know?
Yeah. The only counter example I guess I could think of is like the nuclear bomb, but maybe that would have been a good one to chill on. But even then, if we didn't develop it, then somebody else would have, then we would have been screwed. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think to not want to proceed goes against every example in human history for the most part. So take that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess like hard transition here to something completely unrelated, but I wanted to kind of talk about it just because I thought it was cool. I keep up with a lot with kind of the automotive market, like the electric vehicle industry, just because I think that's another one of like the main, you know, large technology pillars that are happening here at the moment. Just like the overall transition to like sustainable energy. And so one really interesting development that happened recently was um, Tesla partnered with GM and Ford actually. Two separate deals, but they kind of all happened within the same week, pretty much. So now, just to kind of set the landscape here, like Tesla is by far the leader in electric vehicles, by far. And not only in their vehicles themselves, but also their charging network. So like they have the most extensive network of chargers across not just the US, but across the globe. Um, and as someone myself or that owns a Tesla, like I can speak to it that I would not want to own any other electric vehicle because I have dealt with other chargers before outside of this network. It is a god awful experience. They're very hard to find. Half the time you get there, like they're like half the time when you get there, they're all broken. Or like maybe just one or two that work. Uh, just awful, awful experience. And so this is like very big news for electric vehicle owners, people that don't own Tesla because don't own a Tesla because now they get access to any chargers that they want. And what I find really interesting about this is like I'd say the public view of this deal is like Tesla is just kind of being a good Samaritan in a way and opening up their network to other automotive companies to like kind of expand their mission and just like, and their mission is just like, accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. So they're making it easier and better for other car companies to offer charging to their customers. More people are going to want to buy electric vehicles. It just speeds up that transition. But, and while that is true, and that is like one of their primary motives, it also like, it's also like Tesla's playing chess in a way too, because now everyone that doesn't own a Tesla and is going to be charging at a Tesla station, they're going to realize how much better the Tesla ecosystem is. It's like you own an Android phone and you see what happens with people that have like all Apple products and how it's just like this perfect ecosystem. Everything's synced together properly. Everything's just easy and seamless to use. Kind of the same way in that sense. So really it's like free advertising for Tesla because now all of these people are going to be charging there. They're going to be surrounded by Teslas, probably going to want to see them, look into them. And then overall, I think while it does benefit GM and Ford a lot, Tesla is just like the main winner here because not only is it free advertising for them, but GM and Ford are like paying for this deal to happen. Like it's not just like oh, here you go. We're giving this to you for free. Like it's a business deal. Like people that if you don't own a Tesla and you're charging at a Tesla station, you're going to be paying more. So overall, just like I'd say win-win for everyone in this scenario, but really the biggest winner here is Tesla because it's just kind of a really smart deal on their part. But
To
yeah,
me,
I
it
don't necessarily
solidifies.
go.
To me, it solidifies their place up top, or it helps to because now they don't have to worry about the threat of a other large network being developed. I mean, unless it's like a third party outside of GM or Ford, but certainly don't have to worry about GM or Ford.
Yeah,
Kind of starting to build their own network, and it's like
yeah,
a crazy concession in my mind on GM and Ford's part. But I guess if they're not far behind, they needed to do it anyway.
no, that's a good point. And to kind of add to that, like I didn't actually watch these presentations. I just kind of read some quotes from them. But within the past few weeks, GM and Ford have like put out either statements or like their CEOs have spoken somewhere and they basically always get asked about Tesla. Always. And for the first time in a very long time, both of them have admitted that Tesla has an undeniable lead on the market. And so, like you said, they're kind of conceding at this point. They're like, okay, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And another quote I saw, I don't know where this came from, some old proverb or something, but you want to bring your enemies onto your own battlefield, And that's kind of what Tesla is doing here. They're like, now GM and Ford are heavily, heavily reliant on Tesla. So they're kind of at their mercy in the sense of like, because before, like no one, that was a big deteriorator for people wanting to buy a GM or a Ford electric vehicle is the lack of charging options. Now that's not necessarily the case, but makes, both of them very reliant on Tesla. And I think, yeah, like you said, it just kind of solidifies their lead. I mean, in my mind, it was already solidified, but this just does it even further. And there's not really any way that anyone else can catch up as far as like a charging network because Tesla has been building theirs out for almost a decade now, if not longer. How are you gonna catch up to that without tens and tens of billions of dollars? You're just not. And there's not anyone out there that's going to be willing to make that big of a bet. So yeah, they're kind of set in stone at this point. But yeah,
Are
there
you
wasn't a whole lot else I
surprised?
wanted to add to that. Just kind of wanted to go ahead.
Are you surprised there haven't been any big mergers between these once great staples, um, or these once big car companies that are now playing catch up?
Mergers of like GM and Ford partnering together to attack Tesla or
Yeah.
yeah. Um, no, I don't really see that happening, at least not yet. Like you said, these companies are like there's a lot of history behind Ford, a lot of history behind GM, and there's a lot of pride that comes with that. And
Mm.
I can't really imagine anyone giving in the sense of like, because it is like an admission of defeat, basically. But with that being said, I think there's just the way the current landscape is for electric vehicles. You either, I mean, they aren't going to beat Tesla. It's not going to happen. So either you're going to end up going bankrupt, or you're going to have to, rely on Tesla more, or maybe merge with some other companies, like you said. I don't think they're quite at that point, but they're at least starting to come to the realization of like, okay, we're really far behind. We got to make some moves here. I mean, that's why this charging network deal happened, but I think it's only going to be more and more obvious as time goes on. And another thing too that just doesn't make sense to me, a lot of these companies are still in denial that like the future of the future of vehicles are electric. Like, I think it was GM. They just announced a whole new line of vehicles for 2025 or 2026. None of them are electric. Like, why are you even bothered? So I don't like when you make decisions like that. I just don't see how you're going to survive over the next 5 to 10 years, because
Yeah.
like
Well,
GM and Ford, they're already in a very bad position financially. So
yeah. Well, what's probably happening is just, and this is just a speculation, but I would assume the management of those companies is just in some sort of deal with oil companies, like to try and just ride out the wave. Um,
yeah,
if that, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
They're not,
No,
maybe
I
they're
think
not
there's definitely
interested in
some
the
sort of
long.
interplay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. They're probably not 100% committed to the long term, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like they've already kind of realized like, okay, we can't like we're gonna go bankrupt trying to make electric vehicles, because it is like insanely expensive. Like when you're Ford or GM or any of them really, but you have like tens of billions of dollars of infrastructure built out that is built specifically for gas vehicles. Now all of that's useless and you have to restart. Like, I don't know how you can do that. Like, I think they're so big that it's going to be way too expensive for them to like transition all of that over and do it in a way that they can survive. So I wouldn't be surprised if that scenario is true, where they're like, we don't see a way out of this. We're going to make a deal with the devil, basically, of these oil companies, and just like, we're going to ride it out as long as we can. We're going to keep us afloat for as long as they can. The executives keep getting their big salaries each year. And then at a certain point, they're going to file for bankruptcy. But at that point, who cares? Because all those executives are now retired with tens of millions of dollars and they don't care anymore, you know? So I wouldn't be surprised if that's true.
Yeah. You know, typically like, when you look at Tesla, I think what's one of the craziest things about it is their just ability to like foresee the future, really commit to what they know is coming. And um, another good example of that is UAE. So I was deployed to Abu Dhabi a couple years ago, and part of our brief, they were just giving us a history of the country. And, obviously Abu Dhabi, Dubai made their money off oil. But I don't know when they started, but, they just recognized like, okay, well, eventually oil is going to dry up or just not become uh, valued or necessary. Um, so at some point they decided to make the call like, all right, well, we're going to simultaneously, or maybe even more so, develop our banking industry and our tourism industry. And they've done it I think they've been wildly successful as far as I could tell. And so it's just kind of cool, another entity that was like, they saw it, they committed, and they're pulling it off.
Yeah. No, I've seen that. I think they're still like, I would imagine, I mean, from what it looks like, they're still investing heavily into that, especially the tourism part. Like they just hosted like a big, they're starting to host like UFC events, WWE events. They're just building out these absurd cities with like, they just look utopian. Um, and so, yeah, another, I guess, like analogy to that, which kind of ties into a topic I wanted to talk about too, was just, the developments that are happening with Twitter. Um, Kind of the way, I guess, that they have some, I mean, I guess Elon specifically, it's just another one of his like visions as far as transitioning like what's happening with social media in general. And one thing that I think is really cool that's kind of happened over the past month is some of the people that are announcing their presidential campaigns, they're doing it on Twitter, or on Twitter Spaces. Like they'll do it live with Elon. Um, they'll do their speech or whatever, and then do their Q&A. I didn't listen to them. I listened to one like very briefly just to kind of see, what it was like. But I just think it's cool that they're starting to rely less on like traditional news networks and just go straight to the people through platforms like Twitter. I mean, now you have Tucker Carlson. He's doing his show strictly on Twitter, like just uploads the episodes on Twitter. And he's put out like 3 or so, and all of them have almost 100 million views. Like you're not getting that on Fox or CNN or anything else. Like you're not getting 100 million views, over the course of a couple days, but you can do that on Twitter, like just by sending out a single tweet. It's absurd. So I think it's just cool to see this, I guess, democratization of, publicity in a way.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with Substack being this platform where now all sorts of people can get published. And, maybe initially you're not getting the exposure that you otherwise would if you published on like a well known whatever magazine or website or what have you. But no, it's great. This just like increased access to information. Um, I yeah, I didn't listen to those spaces either. Uh, but dude, hopefully like we see this start a transition away from those dumb debates on like CNN or whatever the mainstream channels. Cause it's like, okay, so I think that, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a rather famous, debate between Abraham Lincoln and whoever he was running against. I want to say Douglas, but I could be wrong. Anyway, it was like a 3 hour debate, I think. I think at one point Lincoln talked for like 30 minutes straight or something like that. And so hopefully we move more towards that. This kind of move to Twitter allows more interaction like that to happen because just the world is so complex and you need more than 30 seconds or whatever you have on those stupid debates to talk, to fully flesh out ideas and whatever and tackle issues. So,
Yeah. And it's just way more, it sets it up to where it's way more organic too. Like you don't have, yeah, imagine with those debates, they get like, create, or really just anything that's done on like traditional news media. You have your whole PR team watching, telling you what you can and can't say. Like everything's orchestrated beforehand. Whereas on Twitter Spaces, like you just hop on and anyone that I guess is selected, like in a Twitter space, can like come on and ask you a question, like just normal everyday people. And there's not really any other way to do that. Like it's not like that's. I mean, I guess like I don't really watch the debates, so I don't know. But is there like a audience of people that can just like they do like a Q&A thing, or is it all just like straight from the moderators?
straight from the moderators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like where else are you going to get to ask a potential president questions like directly, So I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
think
super. That's like
they
a super cool thing.
right. They used to do 'em. I forgot what they were called, but they like CNN or whoever would host a kind of Q&A session. But those are probably most likely staged as well. So, but yeah, just
Yeah.
any random Joe Boyle can come fire away at whoever on Twitter. That's funny and good.
Yeah.
It's good.
I think too, it helps you distinguish of who's being genuine and who isn't, because there's still going to be people that want to go on these traditional news outlets and answer their orchestrated questions that they know are just like they already know beforehand of what's going to be asked and how they're going to respond. Like we all know that too, as people watching this, we know. Um, but if we see someone going on Twitter Spaces and just talking to random people and answering their questions, we know that's
Or
genuine, you know?
better yet, we see them avoiding Twitter, staying off those
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, that's a big tell too.
Mhm. So I think I think what Elon's doing with Twitter uh, is really like starting to, I guess, resonate and make some change as far as what people expect. And I hope it continues because I think it's just a way allows for way healthier discussions and more transparency. So
Yeah, I think. God, dude, like this might be the first time where we're nearing the end of a episode, and I feel like really hopeful. We have a
yeah.
lot of good stuff going on with AI, and then this Twitter stuff. Yeah, that's good.
Is there like any other topics you wanted to touch on before we kind of wrap things up?
No, um, no, I think we hit everything. Yeah,
Cool.
my dog has sensed apparently a burglar, so it might be a good time for me to hop off anyway.
Yeah. We'll wrap up here, and then, like I said earlier, we'll be back to like normal weekly episodes, more broad topics too. So, yeah, really excited for that, and we'll see everybody next week.